In today's show, after a long weekend of drama, the Blazers did indeed trade Gary Payton to the Warriors. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen every day. Free on all platforms, coming at you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same as Locked On Blazers, your team every day. It was a drama-filled weekend for the Blazers. More drama than anyone needed, quite frankly. The Gary Payton saga started basically at the close of business on Friday, heading into the weekend and heading into the Blazers game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It didn't even wrap itself up until there was 2 minutes left in the Super Bowl on Sunday night. It was all weekend long, and then we find ourselves back to where we started. So let's wade through the muck. This story, since we last spoke, this is every day of the week I do this podcast, Monday through Friday. So I haven't talked into this microphone over the weekend, and since I last recorded one of these on Thursday night to when I'm recording this now on Sunday evening, I'm tired of this story. I'm already worn the heck out by it. But let's walk through the Gary Payton timeline from this trade almost not happening. It was never really in jeopardy, but this trade, the drama around this trade from why it almost didn't go through or was briefly in fake jeopardy of not going through to where we landed on Sunday night, which is back to where we began. We'll talk about that. Blazers played a game on Friday night. We want to talk about Cam Reddish's debut and give a rosy outlook, a little Blazer positivity, because I know you need it after this weekend, about the future, what this future could hold, without my own brand of pessimism. The real deal Holyfield, no skeptic version of what the Blazers' better scenarios, good scenarios might look like this summer, this off season. Let's get into the Gary Payton stuff first. Here's a classic Mike sigh. Oh man. Okay, I do hate this story with most of my heart, but I will still bring it to you in as thorough a detail as I am capable. Friday, 4:08 p.m., a tweet drops from Shams Charania of The Athletic and a story with bylines from Anthony Slater. Eventually, the story was updated with credit to Marcus Thompson as well. But basically, the Shams Charania and the folks who write for the San Francisco-based Athletic satellite office. 4 o'clock, just after 4 o'clock on Friday, story comes out that Gary Payton, there's a holdup with a trade, the 4-team trade that sends Gary Payton to the Warriors, Sadiq Bey to the Hawks, James Wiseman to the Pistons, and the Blazers in return are going to end up with Kevin Knox, 5 second-round picks. There's a holdup in this 4-team deal. We'll just call it the deal from here on out. There's a holdup in the deal because Gary Payton is going to fail his physical. The Warriors are going to mark him down as a failed physical, and includes the line in the story. The Blazers training staff had been pushing him, that's Gary Payton, pushing him to gut through it and giving him Toradol shots. Then I had to learn what Toradol is. It's something I frankly would have been better off not knowing about. It's a pain medication. You can get it orally or you can get it via injections. The injections are typically larger, but not always. You can get small injections if you want. But in general, an injection would be typically larger than an oral dosage. That will come up more later. So that's at 4:08 p.m. At 4:30 p.m., Joe Cronin steps to the podium for a pre-scheduled press conference to talk about the trade deadline and the trades that had happened. So we're talking like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes before Joe gets up there. I mean, by my actual clock from like when the tweet posted to when Joe stepped up there was about 22 minutes. So we had about 22 minutes to read the story and be like, yo, what the... Knowing that this is going to be a big thing, right? This is a big deal. One of the trades you tried to make at the deadline is now held up, and there's some implications that the Blazers training staff was maybe not taking player health as serious as they wanted. Joe did not really talk about the specifics. He he did what, what someone who's good at press conferences would do is he just said, like, listen, I literally, it literally just happened 5 minutes ago. I can't really speak to the specifics. And then he was sort of pressed later on about, like, can you just talk about sort of the larger implication of player health? And he said the following: player safety is super important to us. It's a super important thing across the league. We were playing him again being Gary Payton. He had been cleared, and we were confident that he was healthy when he was playing. We would not have brought him back if we thought he wasn't healthy or if we thought he was at risk. You trust that we did the right thing. You trust our process was correct. And these reports, I think if you knew our clearance process was proper, so I will rely on that. That's like a direct quote. I'm reading literally transcribed from the video. I was not in the room at the time. But like in general, there's, I think that some pronouns get screwed up a little bit in there in terms of like you and such. Second person pronouns screwed up a little bit. But like, listen, Cronin is saying, we let Gary Payton play because we cleared him to play and thought he was ready to go. He was asked about it. He answered it. He didn't really get pressed on the specifics of the painkiller stuff, and I do not think the painkiller stuff is particularly important. More on that in a second. So then the Blazers play a game. They lose to the Thunder. We'll talk about that later in the show. This is still lingering. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's like there was supposed to be, the original reporting from The Athletic suggested that Saturday there would be a final decision made. It was later updated that it was going to be Sunday that the decision was made, and The Athletic updated their story accordingly. A lot of updates to stories in this one. But it's Saturday. Just after 3 p.m. on Saturday, Woj reported basically the same thing The Athletic did. One of the funny things about Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania is they do not like each other, and I know that because they never ever give the other one credit or acknowledge the other one has reported a story first. It's very typical in the past to be like, can confirm whoever's getting traded to Orlando, ESPN first. That does not happen with Shams and Woj anymore. They, if you know the whole thing, it's like they used to work together. Then Shams was the protege. Then they kind of split off. Now they clearly have beef. So a funny thing about just watching this story come out is like ESPN and The Athletic pretend the other one doesn't exist. So Adrian Wojnarowski at 3 o'clock on Saturday basically writes the same story as that The Athletic had reported, with the same implication or the same reporting, I should say, not implication, written down in words, that Gary Payton had taken Toradol, had been injected with Toradol to play. And that was the basis. Much of the part of the Warriors' complaint was that they felt like during the trade process, the Blazers did not disclose how hurt Gary Payton was and what the situation with his body was like. So that's at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Then at 4:57 p.m. on Saturday, Chris Haynes releases a tweet. It's Chris Haynes of Bleacher Report and the Turner Broadcast Networks releases a tweet from Aaron Goodwin, who is the agent for Gary Payton II and also for Damian Lillard, just so you know. And Aaron Goodwin says, according to Haynes, quoted from Haynes saying, "Despite what's being reported, my client never took Toradol shots to be available for games during his time in Portland." Okay, so we have reached the point now. It's 5 p.m. on Friday afternoon, and we have reached the point where somebody's lying. Because the reporting that is pretty clearly from, it's like folks in the Bay Area reporting and Woj reporting, the Warriors are mad that. Like, it's not even like, sure, it's like unsighted sources, but it's like, this is how the Warriors feel. Clearly, from the Warriors side, Warriors perspective, and now the agent for the player involved in this is saying, my client never took shots was never given shots of Toradol to play for the Blazers. Okay. Is this going to happen? That's about 5 o'clock. At 7:35, Gary Payton comes out and sits next to Warriors GM Bob Myers and Mike Dunleavy Jr., who also works for the Warriors front office. He goes and sits out and watches the fourth quarter of the Warriors' loss on Saturday evening. At that point, I knew the trade was going through. It was always going through. But when Gary Payton is like still in San Francisco and he's chilling with the front office and like sitting and chatting with them, there's no way this trade's not going to happen. Obviously, this trade's going to happen. It's just how much beef do the Warriors have with what they perceive the Blazers did. That's where we're at, right? And why would the Warriors have why would this trade go through, and why do the Warriors have beef? That to me is the crux. That to me is really the crux of this. The Warriors have beef because they feel like they got damaged goods. They feel like Gary Payton arrived and failed his physical. That is the crux of the anger here. That is like why they are mad. The sort of getting caught up with the Toradol stuff, and we'll finish that in a moment. That journey that really takes a turn. But like, I don't know if it's so much about the painkiller stuff. To me, it is about Gary Payton just failed a physical, and they're like, what the heck? How did he get here and fail a physical? They're pretty, they according to the reporting from Adrian Wojnarowski and from Shams Charania and the rest of the guys at The Athletic, it is Gary Payton is likely to miss several weeks, if not months, with this injury. So he was playing in Portland. When the Warriors doctors see him, they're like, we think he's way more hurt. To me, the interesting thing is, like, how do two medical staffs determine from the same injury that things are very different? That is really, to me, the curious part of this. But like, the Warriors are pissed. They're pissed, and that's why they are not going through this trade. They're creating this drama, right? Like, they're mad. If you know, and the reason this trade's always going to go through is because there's massive tax implications. The Warriors getting out from under James Wiseman's salary saves them upwards of like $60 million in taxes, $80 million in taxes. It's $80 million bucks. It is not like it is negligible money kind of because it's like billionaires, but it's like it's not a small amount of money. The $80 million is a massive amount of money for not just for lay people, but just for like paying taxes beyond the salary you're already going to shell out to NBA players. There was no incentive for the Warriors to muck this trade up. The only reason that they would drag themselves into a weekend-long drama is because they were pissed. They were legitimately mad, and they wanted to hold the Blazers' feet to the fire. They wanted to make the Blazers mad. And there were still more twists to come in this story. In the second segment, more twists and the resolution here, and I'll give my sort of final thoughts on a messy story, but we got to hit it. We got to hit ad break real quick. This episode brought to you by FanDuel. It's the midpoint of the NBA season. We're actually past the midpoint of the NBA season, but the All-Star break. We're heading into the second half of the NBA season. Perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Safe, secure, and super easy to use, and you can bet on everything from the money line to the point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's close this saga. So here we are. It's now Saturday evening. Gary Payton is sitting on courtside, not courtside, but to me, courtside is feet on the wood. He's sitting near the court with the Warriors front office. It's clear he's not going back to the Blazers. This trade is going through. It's just how much drama, how much sort of pain do the Warriors want to enact? The reporting suggests that what they, after the trade deadline, you can't change the trade. It's a yes or no proposition. It's a all or none, right? It's a bunch of players hung up in this. Like I talked about, like the sort of human element of the trade deadline prior to in an earlier show this week. It's like, what a weird thing to be Saddiq Bey and don't know if the team that drafted you is going to have to take you back or you're moving to Atlanta. What a weird thing to be James Wiseman. What a weird thing to be Kevin Knox. It's very odd. What a very weird thing to be Gary Payton caught sort of in the middle of this. So here we are, Saturday night, no resolution. The reporting suggests that there's going to be has to be a resolution by 9:30. This is Adrian Wojnarowski. Has to be a resolution by 9:30 Eastern time on Sunday. So it's coming down to the gun. It's. When I saw that, I said, well, at least I'll get to watch the Super Bowl before I find out what the resolution is here. What is the resolution? Well, at 12:24 is when the tweet went out. I did the whole timeline, but to the minute. 12:24, tweet comes out from The Athletic that is an update clarifying that Gary Payton did not take injections of Toradol. He took oral doses. So it's like, there's a lot of dumb stuff in this. This is why I'm kind of worn out by this. It's kind of sloppy reporting from The Athletic, to be clear. Like it's like you want to get that right, and then even when they made the update, it still used the term "shot up" in the phrasing of the story. Like it's just kind of sloppy. Like I said, a lot of updating of stories. You got to update the whole story. It doesn't look good. reporters get things wrong. They weren't really printing a retraction. They were just saying like, oh, here's an update to the story. Again, I don't think the Toradol is the real crux here. I don't think it's the real crux, but it's a pretty stupid little detail, which brings us back to the statement from Aaron Goodwin of Goodwin Sports, Gary Payton's agent. One of the all-time great moments in clarification history where he stated, despite what's being reported, my client never took Toradol shots to be available for games during his time in Portland. Sure didn't. Sure didn't. That is one of those moments where you provided clarification, but not clarity. It's truly one of the stupidest turns in this saga. That's a 12-25. Okay, now the Athletic's saying we got this wrong. It wasn't injections. It was oral medicine. So okay, it was oral doses of the same medicine. Okay, well the trade's still going to go through. It's just now we're just like the beef is still rolling along. At about 3 p.m., both The Athletic and ESPN reported about right after one another that the Warriors were going to accept the trade officially. It was going to go down as a failed physical, but they're going to accept the trade. So, basically, what the Warriors were dragging their feet on was that they wanted to be able to appeal to the league. They want to appeal to the league and have the Blazers be punished in some way for failure to disclose all of the details of the injury. And what the Warriors are probably after is just punishment. They don't care about the loss of picks or the money, right? They like for what like specifically happens to the Blazers. What they're after is that the Blazers face some punishment because they feel wronged in this area. So a little before 3 p.m., both ESPN and The Athletic report this is going to go through. At 6:48 p.m., Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reports that the trade is completed. Gary Payton is a Warrior. Kevin Knox is a Blazer. The Blazers will also get five second-round picks in the trade. James Wiseman's headed to the Pistons, and Sadiq Bey headed to the Hawks. The four-teamer finally closed after 3 days of mess. Yuck. Yuck. Here's how you know this was a mess. Both teams' fan bases, and I'm judging this mostly by like Reddit, because it's the easiest way to kind of get a pulse of. It's also got to get a pulse of like the most. We'll say passionate folks, but it's the most passionate folks. It's like both teams' fan bases are calling the other team rats. Blazers are rats for blah 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 blah. Warriors are rats for blah blah blah. It's messy. It's messy, and it's. I would say it is mostly a bad look. I don't even know if it's. Here's how I feel about it. I feel that it lays bare the sort of way that the news brokers and breakers in the league break stories. They do things for a certain viewpoint. But I will say this is not uncommon, even like in local markets by local reporters. You have access to who you have access to, and when they tell you stuff, you report it. I don't think necessarily the reporting was intentionally malicious to by The Athletic, who initially broke the story, to get the Blazers. I do think the Warriors had an axe to grind. I'm drawing a sort of maybe you're not seeing the distinction, or maybe not hearing the distinction if you're listening to the audio. But for me, this is more about the Warriors had an axe to grind, and so they went out and ground it. They went out and made sure that the Blazers felt it. The Warriors never had any intention of rescinding this trade for all of the obvious financial reasons. So huge tax relief based on getting out from under James Wiseman's money. Because they were never going to do that, they dragged themselves into some unnecessary drama. They did not need to do this, but the only reason that they take it this far is because they're legitimately mad at the Blazers, legitimately mad. And you can choose your own adventure on whether they get to be mad or whatever. For me, the point is they were mad. It's not what type of painkiller Gary Payton took or whatever it is. It's that the Warriors are sitting there saying, we feel like you didn't disclose all the injury stuff. And the Blazers are saying listen, you had this dude in camp, you had this dude last year, you knew he was going to get surgery. He missed half the season. Then he's coming back and playing sparing minutes for us. And we've cleared him to play, right? From the Blazers side, their opinion is that he missed a bunch of time. Then he came back. And now he's playing. And for us, it's behind us. And on the Warriors side, they say this body is still screwed up. And to me, that's the interesting part. Not what type of meds or whatever thing. Like, I think there's a lot of hand wringing about on the internet about the painkiller stuff. To me, that is not particularly important. What is important here, and what was sort of the crux of the beef, is that one training staff looked at Gary Payton and said, "You're good to go, baby." And the other training staff said, whoa, you can't play for a month. You are not ready to play basketball. I don't know enough about medicine to know how two training staffs could look at the same injury and think that. So, and quite frankly, I don't even know what goes into clearing a guy to play basketball coming back from that type of surgery. I'm a podcaster. I'm not going to pretend to understand this. What I will say is that, like, it's pretty clear why the Warriors were pissed. And from the Blazers' perspective, it's pretty clear why they'd be like, we didn't do anything wrong because we believe wholeheartedly that he's good to go, and that's why we cleared him to play. I do think rewinding to how Gary Payton how the Gary Payton saga kind of played out and him getting back on the floor is worth remembering. I don't know if it's like super meaningful, but he was supposedly going to play. The Blazers were a little slow to announce his surgery, but at the time it didn't seem that big of a deal because he got the surgery in July, but they didn't announce it until September. And then it was like, oh, but he'll be ready for training camp. And then he wasn't ready for training camp, and it was reevaluated, and they pushed it back. And then he was available once to the media, but then he wasn't available again, and it led to all this speculation. And then eventually it came from Chauncey Billups, who was pressed on it by reporters after months and months and months of having to be like, I don't have an update on Gary. He's getting close, or we don't have an update on Gary. And saying, like, he didn't say it, but the implication was he's been cleared to play. It's up to him when he plays. And that isn't public pressure. I do not mean to say that that's public pressure, but what it is saying, like, we believe Gary's ready to go. He doesn't believe he's ready to go. And then a week later, Gary gets back out on the court and plays. At the time, it just seemed like, yeah, Gary Payton's not ready. He's not physically ready. He's not mentally ready. And he doesn't trust himself to go out and play. In hindsight, it is worth remembering that after missing 35 games, even getting Payton back out here was a little bit contentious between what the Blazers believed his sort of readiness to go and what he believed his readiness to go. I kind of think a similar dynamic is playing out here, except it's now playing out between two medical staffs, and it was unnecessarily drama-filled and messy. Thanks in part to some reporting from the national media, thanks in part from just like the nature of unnamed sources and the timing of Joe Cronin's press conference. It's a mess. I'm glad it's behind us. We'll see what happens with the Blazers. The league is going to investigate it. For the Blazers, or the Warriors have, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, have officially lodged a complaint with the league. The league office is going to look into it, and we'll kind of get some clarity there. I think it is. It's just bad. It's just bad. You just don't want it to end up. You don't want it to end up here. Nobody comes out of here looking like, well, you did the right thing, because it just ends up, it's odd. It is an odd and messy situation. I don't think there are winners here. I think there are losers to a variety of different degrees. Choose who you'd like to be the biggest loser. You can call out who you think the biggest loser is. I know that there is vitriol from both sides, and I sort of see it from, I don't know if I see it from both sides. I can understand why certain perspectives would be held from either side of this messy situation. Okay, let's be done with it for a little bit. Let's just be done. Let us wash our hands of Gary Payton and talk about brighter days. On Friday's show, I was pretty skeptical of what the Blazers did at the trade deadline. Not necessarily what they did, but like what they do from here. I would like to remove my natural skepticism and give you a truly positive outlook on what's next and talk a little bit about Cam Reddish's debut. That's what we'll do to close the show. But first, let me tell you, this episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner or a hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, from your company, and from their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs, connect with them fast and for free. Plus, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, and it's all in one easy-to-use platform. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Let's get a little rosy. Typically, we would have done a fastest recap in the West in this one. Blazers lost 138-129 to the Oklahoma City Thunder on Friday. They didn't look good in the fourth quarter. They couldn't stop Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's really good, and they made him look really good. His shot chart is wild. He got to the rim whenever he wanted and missed a three-pointer. That's pretty much what his shot chart tells you. That's what the game told you. When he wanted to get in the paint, he could. But instead of recapping a bad game, this weekend was messy. If you're a big Blazer fan, this weekend was kind of bad. I get it. So let's end with a little bit of a true positive outlook. I was on Friday's show. It was right after the trade deadline, and I kind of recapped my sort of underwhelmedness with the trade deadline. But I think I let my skepticism about executing the plan kind of color my analysis of the plan itself. So let's talk about the plan itself, and I will remove my skepticism. Here's what the Blazers can do following the trade deadline. First of all, Cam Reddish makes his debut against the Thunder. He starts. I really like that he started. I like if you're a new player or bad players, young players, unfamiliar players, put them with the best guys on the court. Let him play his minutes with Dame and Jeremy Grant and Ant. Dudes are gonna look better with better teammates. Much easier to kind of get in where you fit in, as opposed to playing with a second unit, kind of messy, already kind of messy second unit that's got super young guys, Shaedon Sharpe and Jabari Parker, or Jabari Walker rather. Jabari Parker would not be helpful either on the second unit, but he's not on the team. A couple rookies, bunch of Anthony Simons point guard minutes, which have been up and down this year. So I liked that Cam Reddish started, and I thought right away showed what he can do. Got to scored the opening 5 points of the game. He throws it in the post, cuts, gets a pass back off a cut, scores, hits a three, a late clock 3-pointer. He all told finished with 11 points, 2 boards, 2 assists in 17 minutes. He was 4 of 7 from the floor, 2 of 5 from 3-point line, and made his 1 free throw on an and one, baby. Cam Reddish looks like a basketball player. The problem with him has mostly been consistency and consistent production, but man, can you see how tantalizing he can be? He's 6'8", he can dribble a little bit, he can handle a little bit. I thought he looked really bad on defense against the Thunder, but that's one game. He kind of admitted that his defense was pretty far behind in that one. We're just gonna shoot him bail on that one. That one does not matter. It doesn't. We'll save that analysis for another time. But the size, the handle, he can shoot it a little bit. It's this is if he puts it together with his skills that he has with consistency, could he be good? And I think that's why he was a 10th pick in the draft. That's why the Knicks at the time traded a first round draft pick to acquire him. He's been tantalizing. He just hadn't quite put it together. If he puts it together in Portland, it starts to paint the picture of what can be next. And I think that's the important part of what they did at the deadline. It's about what the next move comes. So I've been talking about a bunch on this show is that the summertime is the time for them to make a big trade. And Joe Cronin at his press conference on Friday said the same thing. It's he said, we are almost anxious to push all our chips in to make a big trade. He's very clear about their willingness and desire to make a trade. He also admitted, and I thought that I appreciated this, is that he's kind of selling faith and selling hope to a fan base that wanted action. And he recognizes that he's asking you to trust him, and trust is, earned. But he also noted that the last time he made a big trade at the trade deadline, he maybe got back at first and was like, this package isn't great, but it set themselves up with a trade exception that allowed them to acquire Jeremy Grant. It really felt like step 1 of the CJ trade was specifically designed for step 2 of the Jeremy Grant acquisition. That trade, the draft pick and the exact size trade exception you need to get back Jeremy Grant. Step 1 sets up step 2. So if you're trusting Joe Cronin's multi-step approach to these things, because he knows that he can't go all in at the same time, and the Blazers didn't have the tools to go all in, the summertime is when it can happen. And if you have Cam Reddish, who's got some tools, he's going to be a restricted free agent this summer. If you want to keep him, he's probably going to be cheap to keep. And if he pops here, you might end up getting a cheap, cost-controlled 23-year-old forward with some size to be impactful on both sides of the court, some shooting skills, some ball handling skills, like the exact type of player every team is after. They also acquired Matisse Thybulle. And Thybulle is pretty limited on offense, but an elite defender. Every multi-time all-defense earner, multi-time all-defense representative. The advanced numbers jump off the page. If you watch him play, he's a pretty darn good defensive player. Like he's really good on that end. So you address some needs to get better on defense. You address some wing versatility, and both Thybulle and Cam Reddish will be restricted free agents this summer and will likely be cheaper to retain than many other options. There's a pretty good chance that Josh Hart makes more money this summer than Thybulle and Cam Reddish combined. Josh Hart's better at basketball, so that's kind of how that works. But that is wing depth, youthful wing depth, addressing the defense, and cheap to retain. Plus, in that trade that netted you Cam Reddish, you get a first-round pick from the Knicks. That first-round pick is lottery protected, meaning if the Knicks make the playoffs, that pick belongs to the Blazers. The Knicks are going to make the playoffs. Like, there's a chance they bottom out and don't, but they're good enough, and the bottom of the East is not that scary. I'm comfortable saying the Knicks are going to make the playoffs. The Blazers are going to end up with something like the 21st pick in the draft. That is valuable for a couple reasons. One, it's valuable because the Blazers could just have the 21st pick in the draft someone that helps, and be good from there. But moreover, if Portland misses the playoffs, and quite frankly, Joe Cronin's press conference seemed to suggest that he is comfortable missing the playoffs and recognizing that might be the direction this team heads. That's fine. It's fine. A little disappointing, but it's fine. That would give the Blazers something like the 9th or 11th pick in the draft, and also the Knicks pick, which would be the 21st pick in the draft. For our purposes, let's call it 10 and 20, because those are easy numbers to remember. The 20th pick is really valuable to me, because you could trade that pick to the Chicago Bulls and say, hey, you have a lottery-protected pick that belongs to the Portland Trailblazers. How about you give that rights to that pick back in exchange for this pick from the Knicks? It's about where you expect this to convey, because the Blazers pick only goes to Chicago once Portland makes the playoffs. So like right in that range, 15, 18, 19, somewhere in that range. So if the Knicks pick is like the 19th pick in the draft, you say, hey, hey, Bulls, instead of waiting down the line and having this pick be like something that's deep into the future, just take this one. Give us our pick back. Bam. The Blazers have all of their stuff to trade, and now they're set up. 2 young guns to move into the future with Thybulle and Reddish. If either of them are really effective, you pay them and make them part of the team. If they aren't particularly effective, they are low-cost flyers to see if they're going to work down the stretch of the season. And regardless, you still end up with a draft pick that could allow you to get your protected pick back from the Bulls, and thus trade all of your future picks and some young parts to land whatever star is available on the market. That's the rosy outlook. That's the plan. And Cronin didn't, I don't know if he spelled it out that clearly, but he spelled it out close to that clearly at his press conference on Friday. If you want to think that, that what I've been talking about a bunch on this podcast is like the big move comes in the summer. What happened on the trade deadline, while it might be a little bit underwhelming now, it sets the Blazers up for a possibility to still absolutely real deal Holyfield go for it in the summertime. They are better poised to take a big old swing now than they were on Wednesday. Heading into the trade Thursday morning, they were not as well positioned. Well, they made the trade on Wednesday night. Wednesday morning, they were not as well positioned to make a big swing trade in the offseason as they were on Friday morning when I came out with a podcast a little more filled with skepticism. I don't know if my view has changed, but I wanted to give you a true sort of like, hey, this is the real best case scenario, void of all of my pessimism. You got it? That's the view. That's what happens next. The rest of this year is like we'll see where they end up, and we'll see how Reddish fits, and we'll see how Thibault fits. We'll see if Kevin Knox is like involved at all. I don't imagine he will be, but it'll be a chance to find out where those guys fit. And it starts Monday against the Lakers. That's who the Blazers play tomorrow night. Not clear if LeBron James is going to play. He's missed the last couple games and he's listed as questionable. We will see. We will see. If LeBron doesn't play, the Lakers are beatable, although they are better after the trade deadline. If LeBron does play, the Lakers are just straight up good, and it's going to be a tough game. 2 more games before the All-Star break, then the All-Star break. Stick with us 5 days a week. Got you covered on all things Portland Trailblazers right here on Locked On Blazers, coming at you Monday through Friday. Make it your first listen every weekday. Tell your friends to do the same. I appreciate you listening, and I will talk to you soon.